video of sorts. Anyway, so I'll do a response to Pyrrho's illusions roomy thingy. So I was in there briefly. First I had internet, my Wi-Fi sucks. But anyway, so I got disconnected by that and then I got kicked out. Just when I was talking about just simply eating Anticonovid's face, it's like somehow that would be a horrible thing to cut his face off and eat it. But anyway, phew, people. So anyway, Pyrrho's asking this question. What would be the minimum standard for a functional human existence? And it's not a logical question. It's an irrational question. It only comes up with irrational answers, of some sort of little, harmless pony heaven that you could contrive an excuse to make. But it would still just be a contrivance. There's no rational answer because there's no rational need. There are just irrational needs created by a DNA molecule in your biology. So none of this is a rational equation. And again, this can be demonstrated by just asking you, when was the last time you cried because of the Martian Holocaust? They don't exist, they were exterminated by never being created. Yes. When was the last time you shed a tear for the tragedy of their non-existent rainbow fun? Oh, that's right, you didn't. So anyway, so there's no the rational answer is, there's no intelligent human function. There's only manipulation of the environment through the application of a scheming tool, intelligence. You can scheme your way into an excuse to contrive, but you cannot rationally, sensibly, and logically find reason to create worlds for humans to live in. It's just silly. So anyway, so yeah, I gave my answer, and whatever happened, happened. Oh, but here's just a typical misparaphrase of the argument. So we'll just play this a little bit.
That we want. And I would love the antinatalist position because it makes the question more fair. We're not trying to say that world's possible. There should be some, because if you're saying it's not possible and we should check out, for example, like antinatalism.
And we should check out, for example. Again, that's not what's being said. What's being said is leave everything exactly the way it is, except stop the poorest 10% of the population from continuing the existence of the human mess. So, I mean, again, this idea that you have to check out is just nonsense. The idea is anti-natalism. Natalism is right in the word. I mean, I wish you'd take it seriously once in a while. I mean, I'm sort of liking the idea of saying, anti-creationists, because that's what you are. You're creationists. You think you have a right to create living things. You have a right to play Frankenstein. And I'm saying you have no degree. You have no competence that I can see to be a creator of living things. So that's the real question. What gives you the right to think you have it's your business to be in the business? A DNA molecule said it's okay? I mean, isn't that kind of insane? Isn't that like saying you went drunk driving and your excuse is, well, my 2-year-old told me it was okay to do. The 2-year-old said, go drinky drink. And so you went drinky drink. That's how silly this is. You're saying the DNA molecule, because it gave me sperm, therefore qualifies me to be a life creator, to play games with sentient organisms' welfare. I'm competent. I can do it. So anyway, they can't even get the argument right. So anyway, I'll be back when it gets interesting. Maybe I'll play, I'll record some of my bits, because, they're not that long. Well, some of them. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, never mind. I'll be back. Alright, I believe we're at the part where I show up.
That are about to get run over. We're the terrorists that set the whole thing up, and they just did it to get the town hero to kill the other town hero.
Okay, we get some antinatalists.
There we are.
Oh, shit.
Well, you have one. But, yeah, I mean, I'll just deal with the one question if you want. Just this, what kind of world kind of thing. And, yeah, I'm just going to continue to make the argument. I think it's a valid argument. The very structure of the living organism is just contriving a need. Now, you think...
Yeah, okay. So anyway, I just point out, that you think there's a difference between your happiness and the worst person on Earth's happiness, and there really isn't. It's just a chase. It's just a eating. That's all it is. You're eating a different food, but it's eating, and you're only doing it because you're hungry. So you have to be made hungry for it, and that's all there is. So anyway, I'll get to the part where something happens. There's no point in just playing my part, I don't think. You can always watch it. It's at 40:16, so 40 minutes, 16 minutes, seconds into the video. I should grab links, but I'm just way too lazy. Anyway, till momentarily. Alright, so this is the part I hadn't heard. So Pyrrho's responding, and so he basically concedes part of the argument, but then he goes on to say, well, what about curiosity and eureka and
keep us wanting to learn things? I mean, I think it's hard to trash those.
Yeah, it keep us wanting to learn things. So again, it's hard to trash those. Again, they're just more desires, built out of the negative condition, which is ignorance, and the fact that you gain gratification in many times in solving a problem. That's again just an ego mechanism. That's not much different than putting a basketball in a hoop. It's not much different than figuring out a way to paint a can of Coke a certain way to convince a bunch of people to buy it, and then you become a very important employee because you figured out the secret of, putting the secret little code spots on the can, so little fake drips of condensation on the can, and you figured that out, and so you did the company a lot of good because you figured out how to subliminally get people to buy something that they don't need or not good for them, because you made it an impulse, because you created an impulse in them to buy it. And that's all we're talking about. It's just impulses, and impulses created by stupid frickin' DNA psychology. And you want to pretend it's a philosophical discussion? It's not. It's just going to keep being pulled into a conversation about somehow the intrinsic fundamental legitimacy of our psychology. But that's all there is. There's just psychology here. Philosophically, there's no rational ground to stand on. Philosophically, rationally, intellectually, there's nothing redeeming about life. The best thing it can do is first cause no harm. And it can't do that because it's a harm engine. That's what it is. Oh, anyway. So, yeah, I'll be back. See how it goes. Alright, so this portion, Entecontavad just chimed in with, he just glibbed on the word curiosity, because to him the word curiosity means he goes on some pointless walk to some pointless place for some pointless purpose, and then he sees something that he found that's interesting, and then he says, well, that's what I went walking for, or something like that. That you find it, and that, and this is not a response, in my opinion, to curiosity. Curiosity is more like, I need an answer. I want to know how it works. I want to know why it does what it does. Why questions, how questions. This is what the fundament of curiosity is made out of, because we want control. Control comes through curiosity. You're not gonna gain control if you're not curious, because then you're not gonna find out how it works, and then you're not gonna find how to use it properly, completely, sufficiently, appropriately. So let's see what Pyrrho says.
I think that the life we have is a bunch of images. Visual, sense, smell, images of our feelings of pain and hunger and all the emotional imagery, all of that called imagery, over time. It's always going along, and it's over time. And sometimes the time can seem like it stops or skips or it disappears, if you're under anesthetic. That's the point. For it to be there when you're there.
Well, apparently this doesn't have anything to do with the subject of curiosity or the acquisition of knowledge and what the implications are of knowledge and whether we have an obligation to follow the facts rather than use the facts. And that's the difference between me and an Entecontavad. Contavad thinks facts are there to be used. I think facts are there to be listened to. They're there to tell you the answer. They have the answer written on them. The evidence defines the verdict. The evidence defines the verdict. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Anyway, I might as well just play it and see where it goes. I'll be back soon, probably. This is where I'm having network connection issues. So anyway, but I will be back for shortly. for a limited engagement. So this part was kind of funny. All right, so I did come up with a pretty good line. Silicone breasts and silicone brains. And that humans pretty much are rat bags. And then this guy had to show up and say, "Oh no, we're doing much better. We're really cool. Trust me, we're really cool."
We have less slavery now than we had in the past, and
sure.
you want me to agree with that.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not saying that slavery doesn't exist anymore. You can certainly find lots of
women.
Yeah, all right. Well, you can make so many arguments about this slave argument, right? I mean, we obviously have wage slavery. Obviously, most people in the world now are working very hard for shit. It's not like they're all vital blacksmiths or they're all shoemakers or all some kind of vital part of the society, respected part of the society. No, most people are still doing the grunt work for wages that don't pay their sustenance. Yeah, slavery.
In slavery right now, 2 billion women live in slavery right now.
Yeah, I mean, and then you go around the world and you look at how people are living. The actual poor people. And I make the point. They're still wearing pots of water on their fucking heads. Well, anyway, we'll jump ahead a little bit here to the when things really get a little heated. So.
Or heroin. Well, I'm just saying, it's still an addiction.
Oxygen,
It's
coffee.
still a contrived addiction, and you're only attached to it because you're attached to it. Okay? You're not attached to the Martians, so they cannot exist, and you do not shed a tear. Not a single tear will be shed for them.
But Gary, it's a logical thing.
That do not exist. Well, it's not a logical thing. It's a freaking nepotistic.
No, the question. If you answer the question, obviously it's going to be an impossible world.
No logical answer. Oh,
Right, so I'm just pointing out there's no logic you can use to do anything except rationalize our psychology. You're just finding rationalizations for your obsessions, your subjective attachment to the lovely little rainbow, your subjective attachment to a certain kind of aesthetic. And if that aesthetic doesn't exist, you'll be crushed. It's like if I said, okay, we're going to take blue out of the color rainbow. No more blue anywhere. No more blue. Blue is a banned color. There'll be a whole bunch of people be really upset because blue is their favorite color. Does it really mean anything? No. It's just bullshit. It's arbitrary. There's no rationality to it. It's just an addiction. It's just an attachment. It's not a rational attachment. That's why we don't watch a show on TV called Let's Cure Cancer. We don't see this, the reality TV, Let's Cure Cancer show. We don't see that. We don't see anything that has anything to do with anything dignified or decent, because there's nothing dignified and decent about our basic psychology. Our basic psychology is a petty little Weasley monster, an ego monster, who basically just wants to war with everything, smite the evil dragon of the Mohammed. Let's get Mohammed. And he is a rat bag. He is a gutter piece of shit. Yeah, we should beat the Muslims to death with, I don't know, Mohammed's sewn out of actual bullshit. It'd be a good metaphor.
Spock the question, and Mr. Spock is going to tell you it's a category error. Okay? There is no such thing as a rational life.
Well, what if human beings could live, what if there was just one kind of creature that was able to live directly off of sunlight and it didn't have suffering or pain?
Oh, jeez. I mean, this is just so, well, let's play it.
Nerves, because it was in such a, why would that be a problem?
It raped hydrogen atoms. Oh, well, that's no good. So, yeah, it can't rape. So it has to love hydrogen atoms. Okay, so yes, it loves hydrogen atoms, and it jizzes in its pants every day thinking about hydrogen atoms. How special, how cool, how fantastic.
Why does that matter how it feels? I'm just saying it's doing no harm.
How does it matter how it feels? I mean, this is the part where I just glaze over mentally. You're just saying, oh, God, I am talking to silicone brains. But, I mean, these people, I mean, I know I know I have to appreciate that, okay, they don't get it. But, I mean, they still don't get this thing, that the thing that matters here on Earth are feelings. Feelings are what matter. Nothing else matters but the feeling state, the comfort state of the sentient organisms. That's the thing that matters. What makes them comfortable, that doesn't matter. The fact that they are comfortable or uncomfortable, that's the part that matters. and you try to fix it so there's a system of these straight lines. And so he sort of gets it enough to say, well, what if we create star creatures that just get a, orgasm from the sunlight and blah, 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 blah. You still logically have no reason to have them. There's no reason to create something that needs sunlight to feed off of.
Well, I think matter is how it feels is about.
And again, I'll make the argument that it also just denies what I think is just a practical, factual reality of existence, and that is you will have no desire until you are hungry, and hunger will only come out of a negative state first. You have to create a sense of deprivation before you can create a sense of relief. It's the denial of your bliss that makes you hungry for bliss. It's first taken away from you before you can need it or want it or desire it. And you're not understanding that that's how you came into the world. You came into the world denied your bliss, and you're just hunting it like one of your testicles. It's hidden somewhere and you want to go find it. No, well, ovaries for the women. I don't know if they'd want to find an ovary, though. Ovaries just aren't quite as cool.
The only thing that's significant about our consciousness is the feel. Okay, feeling is all there is. Okay?
You're saying, but you're getting at there would have to be a noble feeling.
If you think information is important, then why don't you suggest that Texas Instruments go unbankrupt and just keep making calculators that are processing information? If information is so fucking important, no feeling.
But I think what you're implying then really.
I was over here just making faces, facepalm. How can he say something about information? And, it's just so funny. I mean, it's, look at it, but he's glib, just low. It's all hard, suffering.
Is that, you would be looking for, at the minimum, an actual noble feeling that someone was actually doing something good for the right reason, and that doesn't exist.
There's no good to do. That's right. There's no broken in the universe until we show up. We are the disease.
Evidence of absence.
The fact that we exist is
evidence of absence. I think you said evidence of absence. I don't know. So that's the answer. I mean, once again, he could have just said, "I didn't start the fire." That's all. He's just going to keep saying, "I didn't make it. I didn't invent the universe. I just play along. I just signed up to be part of the Borg." They put the contract. Yeah, I'll sign it. Yes, DNA Borg. Yes. Okay, I will. Be a member of the DNA Borg army. I'm all for the DNA. Heil DNA.
Is what you say has value. Their feelings have value.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with us. Feelings have value, right? They've had value for 500 million years, okay? Long before humans got here and made themselves all fucking special. Feelings matter.
So feelings matter, and so, but you don't seem to value what the feelings you're feeling about. So
I don't seem to, again, I just can't believe this argument keeps coming up, and you people can't really understand the difference between your programming, the subjective associations you make between things and your sensations, and the sensations themselves. The sensations themselves are what makes the difference. If you didn't have the sensations, it wouldn't matter what you liked or disliked, because like and dislike wouldn't mean anything anymore. The only way those words mean something, or good and bad mean something, is because you do have those sensations. But it's not what you're associating things, your projections of value, your projections of assignment of what you will be affected by in terms of your feelings, has absolutely nothing to do with value. Value is in the process of feeling. That's creating value. The associations you make that reflexively create your impulse to have a feeling, that has no meaning. No intrinsic value. That is subjective rubbish. That's psychological nonsense. That doesn't mean anything in and of itself. The feeling means something in and of itself, independent of all else in the universe.
Feelings are the only thing that has value. That's right. The projected value doesn't mean anything. Okay, the feelings are the only thing that have value. the things you feel about don't have any value because you're a fucktard. You don't feel rationally. You feel irrationally as dictated by a DNA molecule, and you're too stupid to rise above it.
Right, the football game doesn't have value, but the enjoyment of the football game...
Oh, it's just pathetic. But anyway, you keep playing.
should then have some value if feelings have
Like I
value.
said, if you're gonna be a dick.
So yeah, I'm going to make the point here. Yeah, I might as well just play. Well, I'm just going to make the point that what we feel about is the very point I'm making. It would be much better if we got orgasms watching people cure cancer instead of orgasms watching people ski down slopes and stuff and pick up weights and go, ooh, look, I'm strong, I'm strong. Yeah, it'd be so much better if we felt good about people heroically conquering negative things like poverty. Yeah, they won the war on poverty. That would be something to celebrate. Not somebody winning the war against the 3-minute mile.
Addicted to water, as Pyro said, or you can be addicted to heroin. Well, I guess you should be addicted to goddamn water. So no, the fact that you get value out of watching people hurt each other is retarded. Okay, so it doesn't have value that you enjoy yourself. It's actually a commentary on what an asshole you are that you enjoy yourself.
Okay,
So look at the face he made. So he's Anaconda, right? Because he's just going to keep arguing that no, we're not here to judge our character. We're just supposed to be here and be monkeys and be assholes. It's in our nature to be an asshole, so let's be an asshole. Let's not judge the nature of our psychology. Let's not recognize it for what it is, a big pile of ego shit.
wait, I want to give Anaconda a chance to get in there without necessarily having to muscle his own way in.
If it's in our nature to get utility out of certain things, if you want to call that addiction, you can call it whatever you want. Then we're all a pile of junkies. What is wrong with being a junkie is what I...
Yeah, so, you just can't get more insipid, right? In terms of, how many times do you have to make this argument that there is no free lunch? That you can't have your heroin for free, right? It has a social cost. It's an expense. That's why there is a war on drugs, is because drugs have an expense. Personally, I'm against things like gambling. I wouldn't say it's something the government should be in the business of doing, because it has a huge social cost. Okay, you will create addicts, you will ruin people's lives, you will drag them right into the gutter with their children. You will cause pain and suffering to have your little fun of playing poker or doing your little I'm winning bullshit. It has an expense, and somebody has to account for that. Now, everybody just can't keep saying I didn't start the fire.
Would have to ask, simply because we're taking something axiomatic. The axiom is that addiction is bad.
No, that's not the axiom. The axiom is, show me an addiction you can have that doesn't have a cost where somebody else is paying for it. Again, if you can show me how you can do something for free, I'll say go ahead and do it to yourself. Fine. But as soon as you create a victim, then you have a responsibility to account for it. You can't just create victims and say it's not my fault. It's just bullshit. That's not riding the tiger, that's riding the weasel.
Well, then if you're going to say that we're addicts, then I'm going to say that you're abusing that axiom, and we're going to have to revisit that axiom, and we're going to have to determine what is wrong.
Well, you just haven't. Again, it's not the axiom. The axiom isn't that addiction is bad. The axiom is, show me an addiction that doesn't have a cost to a victim who didn't sign up to be the victim, who didn't say, go ahead, make me the refuse, the pavement you're going to drive your car on. So show me your addiction that has a road made out of something other than non-compliant victims, non-willing victims, innocent victims. Show me the activity that doesn't have an innocent victim, and I will concede your right to drive on that road. But you can't do it. It's impossible. Because again, every breath you take, has consumed millions of sentient life forms. That's what's on the other pile of the scale. The scale has you standing here saying, I'm worth it. I'm an addict and I'm cool and it's really great and it's fun. You're going all thummy uppy. And on the other side of the scale is the the absolute horror of nature, which is, I will kill 1 million children to create one adult. That's nature's ethics. That's nature's morality. That's nature's character. And when you stand on the damn scale and start talking about how great you are advocating and defending that evaluation. You can't separate yourself from it by simply saying, I didn't start the fire. I didn't make that rule. You're endorsing the fucking rule. It's the same thing as making the rule is endorsing the rule. Fuck.
Being addicted.
Yeah.
If I'm addicted to feeling good and getting satisfaction, I don't mind being an addict. Junkie.
Yeah, exactly. So you bring a negative connotation with the word that it's like, but if I'm addicted to water, I don't see the automatic negative thing.
Yeah, well, show me somebody, again, who's making the argument that your addiction to water is necessarily a problem. That's not going to, no one's going to live on water alone, right? So that's kind of a silly argument to be making, isn't it? Because that has nothing to do with any real circumstance in the real world. Absolutely none. But yes, I'm not really fundamentally, I don't see anything intrinsically or fundamentally wrong with you being addicted to water, especially if you can drink like salt water, because there's plenty of that. And this part here, I got my network connection was
addictions
fucking.
are bad.
I thought Gary got really thoughtful, but he just froze.
Well, again, it's just, we run away from the word addiction.
Yeah.
Well, again, that wasn't what I was saying, and it's quite obvious that's not what I'm saying. So again, see, that's just the misparaphrase, another obvious misparaphrase. First they say ephilism and antinatalism means you have to commit suicide, which it doesn't. And then they make this argument that somehow now, I'm saying all addiction is bad, when no, what I'm saying is addiction is fundamentally, by its nature, going to end up being parasitic. And if you can create an addiction where you're not going to be parasiting on anything, where you're not going to have some unintended consequence that is overtly and decisively negative, then I say go ahead and be addicted.
I'm an addict. I'm
and it's not, the thing is though, see...
But again, so he says, I'm an addict, I'm addicted, it's all okay. But again, he's creating another life form and assuming that life form is going to be comfortable with that addiction. That life form is going to say, I'm going to have the same values and the same appreciations, and is going to find the whole thing quite disgusting. Is going to find their own identity quite disgusting. Isn't going to find their own existence abhorrent and revolting, because there's no way to play a good game. First, we have no economy to play a fair game in. We have no culture to play a sensible game in. It's all gross and disgusting, deception everywhere. There's nothing of integrity or beauty barely left in the human culture. And then just on a visceral level, on a plain physical level, you can guarantee absolutely nothing. You will not get what you deserve. You will get what you fucking goddamn get, which is probably going to be a brain tumor. That's how life works. Life is unfair and lacks any kind of respect for your dignity, your effort, your will, your intent, your character. None of this shit that matters. And yet he'll say this is okay. This is a game I will impose on you. I will force you into this situation to play a game where you will not get what you deserve. I will force you to play a game called deserve has no fucking goddamn thing to do with it.
Hopefully we'll get Gary back at some point, but the thing is, this resistance of saying what would be good enough, that just, it's so impossible, it can't even science fictionally be imagined, is, if you're just going to cast it with no reason, if the suffering, for example, is the negative, and we present a world with no suffering, you can easily say, but that won't be possible. But to say that it's not even logical from a science fiction perspective to discuss it seems more evasive. Like the goal is just to cast.
Well, again, it's not you're the one evading the fact that you're now having a conversation about psychology, because logically it can be demonstrated that there is nothing to this viscerally. Again, we don't lament the absence of the Martians or the Venetians or the Moonyites or the Mercuryites or any of this. We don't lament their non-existence, because that is not a factual, actual, perceived deficit to the universe, because our only thing that we account as having value are these things that we have become attached to, not things that we understand to be valuable, but things that we have been that have rubbed up against us, that have imposed their force on us.
Ask negative words on life.
Quite so.
Whatever. Is that how you think it's going? That's what you think the word addiction means. You don't think it has any rational definition.
No, it does, but I mean, being addicted to I could see people that were addicted to rock climbing and go spend a lot of time doing it, and I don't see the problem compared to opiate addicts that'll steal your shit.
The problem is you're going to keep talking as if you're saying there's no accounting. You don't have to make any account for the cost of your existence.
Oh, we were talking about...
You're saying you can torture victims because you don't care, and that's okay, but I will not have a conversation premised on the fact that you have a right to say somebody else's pain is worth your pleasure.
We were talking about addiction.
Yes, and I'm going to point out here, no, we're talking about the consequences of addiction.
No, we're talking about the cost of
Well,
your
let me...
behavior.
We're talking addiction.
Creating your behavior is the addiction. You still have to account for the behavior.
No, it isn't.
Place in some
I mean, it'd be quite ludicrous to have a conversation about addiction outside the consequences of behavior that's caused by the addiction, right? I mean, if you're just going to say, I'm addicted to something, but I never act on the addiction, well, then it's a harmless addiction. It's like saying if somebody could be a pedophile, theoretically, if they never act on it, well, maybe no harm, no foul, correct? I mean, it's a thought crime isn't what was being discussed here. We're actually talking about real events and real actions in the universe, not just thoughts you have. So the idea that people are going to live on their thoughts is absolute nonsense, right? Nobody does that. Everybody lives in a physical world where they eat physical food and they breathe physical air. They're not addicted to things they don't consume.
Do not live on an island, buddy.
No, but wait. Okay, wait. This is why I like to choose a topic, even though we can wander as far as we want. At times like these, what were we talking about? We're talking about what would be a minimally acceptable world. And Gary, you just said another one, that you don't have the right to have that enjoyment that Anakanavad's talking about at the cost of someone else, which you believe is a necessary situation. But I want to ask the question of, well, what kind of a world would be minimally acceptable? Well, how about one where your own personal satisfaction doesn't have to draw from somebody else's misery?
Well, I know, but that's just ludicrous, right? So I don't even know why he's going to try to change the subject here, because that's a ludicrous premise. Can't happen.
But that would be acceptable.
Oxygen is being created by a biosphere right now that requires hundreds of millions, billions of animals every day to suffer, to create the methane, to create all the other gases, to create the nutrients in the soil, to create the food and the air you breathe. Okay? So I could pile up the number of sentients every day. Think about how many rodents, how many fully sentient mammals are disposed of by the biosphere every day to produce your oxygen. Okay? Millions of animals are tortured daily for your country.
Yes, so he tried to talk over me.
I understand you, Gary. It's not possible. Why are you here now?
So he just goes back to this stupid argument, why don't I just volunteer to jump off the Titanic and let you build another one? Instead of saying, no, I'm going to take a piece of this Titanic and I'm going to get back to the shore and I'm going to shove it up the asses of the people who want to sail the next Titanic. I mean, again, this stupid argument that somehow killing myself prevents my birth. No, it doesn't. It doesn't stop my parents from having me, all right? It doesn't fix that problem, and it certainly doesn't fix the next imbecile who arrogantly says, I'm going to sit there and force somebody to suffer for my idiotic delusions. Doesn't fix the problem, does it? No, the solution isn't my suicide. The solution is the prevention of my future existence, my reoccurrence. Okay, being obliged to make these same fucking arguments over and over and over again to fucking, the remanufacture of the imbecile. Okay, you fucking silicone-brained, fucking coke-drinking fucking addicts.
Here now, because I have to stop it from continuing. How do you think I got here, retard? Some motherfucking ignorant cunt like you put me here. I'm here because assholes like you put me here. If I could motherfucking cut your fucking glib face off and eat it for dinner, I would.
Yes, I believe.
You gotta stop.
So,
They kicked me out of the room. It seems totally rude. I think that was a great line. He deserves to get Hannibal Lectered so thoroughly. But anyway, that's what the underlying point is, okay? That just as I find these people absolutely abhorrent, these Frankensteins, right? Just, think about the movie Frankenstein. Let's always remember all the movies Frankenstein, right? All of them have the villagers, with their pitchforks at the end. Frankenstein's got to go down because this fucker is just too idiotic. He's too stupid. He won't stop playing with fucking fire. And that's how it's going to end, all right? And the Muslims have got their pitchforks, and the Christians are going to have their pitchforks, and everybody's going to have their pitchforks, and we really don't like each other, and we ought to just quit pretending like we do like each other, because we goddamn fucking don't, all right? We pretty much hate each other's motherfucking cunt guts, and people need to admit it. We're, all we can do is build a suitable thing called civilization. What civilization is a goddamn zoo. And all you really want to do is try to create some sort of environment where the little jerky things can play out their existences without hurting each other. But there's absolutely no fucking point in breeding animals to, repopulate the zoo.
I had to kick him. And it's time for a break. Maybe I should have taken the break and then kicked him.
Yeah, well, you can't ever do anything right. Ever. Time for a break. Yeah, you can't even, it's an hour. I mean, this guy he's got all kinds of urinary problems or something. I don't understand. I mean, an hour. I do 7-8 hours without, I'll go get a cup of coffee. That's the extent of my breaking. Amazing. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So I think he's going to start letting a Christian guy talk. But anyway, this was sort of a long segment, so I'll just let it go for a while and see if there is something entertaining to come. But I mean, it's really a lousy point to take a break, right? Because it would have just been interesting to see well, let's just see if there is anything.
I mean, I just wanted to. Gary he knows how to have a conversation that will be informative enough. Yeah. And if it gets that point, and
yeah, I know, but this is all so glib of you, also, right? It's just this whole expectation that I'm not supposed to be offended. I'm not supposed to. It's like, again, expecting a Jew to have a conversation with a Nazi. You've got to understand the value void that exists between us. He essentially sits here and mocks suffering. He glibly laughs at it. Other people's suffering. Let's get this right. All right? He has the authority and the arrogance to tell them what their pain is worth. And so why should I have anything but a desire to throw silverware at that fucker? And hopefully hit a nerve or an artery. So yeah, no, there's no compatibility here. This is just some sort of, again, you're just too glib to understand this too. This isn't just some obscure philosophical concept. This isn't quantum mechanics. All right, this is real shit. Real suffering is on the table, and these assholes are financing torture. Essentially, they're putting the money behind it. They're engineering it. All right, I don't have any obligation to be decent in their company.
Not gonna work. So, but it's been an hour. I would like to take a 5-10 minute break right now. Everybody's free to stay if you want. I gave power to Inventive Harvest here in case Gary needed to be kicked. That's now moved.
Before you go, I've never done this before, and I have no idea how any of this works, and I have no idea when I'm out of line. Don't hesitate to tell me.
Yeah, no, it's quite the opposite. This, people have to butt in. I'm the same way. Inventive will tell you, feel free to butt in. And so there's if anything, you could, no. But
boring. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see if it gets better later. But I don't have much optimism. So anyway. See if I should be back. I'll be back for at least a closing statement of some kind. Fucking bastards. All right. So now they got this guy, some Christian guy, and he's basically saying if it wasn't for my Christianity, I'd be an anti-nihilist. I think actually he was going to say that. Anyway, but this stupid Inventive Harvest guy. So he what is, you people can never paraphrase a single argument correctly. Now, when I talk about the biosphere, I'm not talking about the fact that when you inhale, there's microorganisms you're inhaling. How can you get the argument so wrong? When have I ever complained about a microorganism's welfare? Where? Where's the video where I said, oh my God, the horror, microorganisms are dead? Nowhere, ever. That's Pyrrho's philosophy. Pyrrho thinks they're conscious. I don't think they're conscious. I think it's like inhaling marshmallows. Inhale all the marshmallows you want. I don't give a fuck about marshmallows. I don't give a fuck about all non-sentient things. You want to stick them in your ass? Do it all day long. I don't care. When I talk about the biosphere, buddy, what I'm talking about is the entire sentient biosphere that exists in the world. Okay? That biosphere, the one with the organisms with eyeballs and neurons. Those organisms live and die every day to create the environment you are parasiting off of. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what you physically inhale. I'm talking about the fact that the atmosphere would not be the atmosphere without those organisms being ground up for your service. Jeez. Anyway. So this guy's a little bit incomprehensible.
We need to address this fully, because if I know that they're really suffering, I cannot carry on being joyful and completely free and enjoying the...
Yeah, well, that's good of you. I'm glad it bothers you. I'm glad you're saying it needs to be resolved. Good, excellent. I'm not too glad you're a Christian, because that's just fucktarded. But anyway, I'll play some more and we'll see how it goes. Hotliday has joined the room, so yay for him. Courage. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, just gets more, more pathetic. More pathetic arguments have already been made. So now Hotliday, so he's creating this fake scenario of, well, yeah, if you're an ethicist, there's a real problem, because when there's only 2 humans left on Earth, you'll have to procreate so you can do something about the animal problem. Well, obviously you do something about the animal problem before you get to that point. And the solution for the animals will be the solution for the last of the humans. So I will volunteer, if it requires volunteers, to get nuked with the planet. I will get nuked, if it's okay with me. But yeah, it's just a non-crisis. We have the technology. We can rationally wind the system down. There's no you anti-natalist to 2 human beings and then you decide to do something about the animals when there's only 2 of you left. That's not exactly how it would rationally work, and I think you know that. So I don't know why you're contriving this silly paradox that doesn't exist. I know why, because you're a manipulative propagandizing cunt.
Then to exterminate all life. You understand the deathless position. So
sterilize, yes, whatever, however you want to put it. Obviously, the easiest way to sterilize something is to, have it supernova, and it's pretty sterile. It's pretty quick. It's kind of the most efficient way to do it. So yeah, let's just do it that way.
Well, if human society reduced to a small community of a few hundred, they would then have to grow because.
Well, see again. Now, what logic does this have in it? Does this have any logic? Are we anywhere close to a few hundred humans left? No. We have 7 billion people. And so you would think that if we have volunteered, the majority of us, to allow this wind down, and so in the wind downing process, all we do is basically tell poor people they can't breed anymore, overbreed. And that by natural attrition, over the next 200 years, the human population declines dramatically. We're going to have plenty of time when there's going to be 3 billion people on Earth, and plenty of time when there's going to be 500 million people on Earth, and plenty of time where there's 1 million people left on Earth. And you can logically understand that, can't you? You can derive equations, and you can't understand this? I mean, this is pathetic. Oh, you're trying not to understand. I get it. Okay.
wouldn't have the capability, perhaps, to go out and exterminate all life. Maybe they wouldn't have the technology, so they would have to...
Well, again, we already have the technology. We have 7,000 nukes here. There's another 10,000 maybe in Russia. There's who knows, thousands in China. And we haven't even tried to make mega bombs yet because, we thought we would use them in some sort of war situation, not in a doomsday situation. But quite obviously, we can create a mega bomb. That's just a fact. And if you explode a mega bomb, you will catastrophically degrade the ecology of planet Earth. It'll happen. The donut scenario. Okay, you heard of the China syndrome? Let's call it the donut syndrome. We can create the donut syndrome. Earth will become a donut. A jelly donut. Yeah, a little blue jelly donut.
Further the technological advancement and make sure that humanity survives.
Oh, why don't you just change the subject entirely? I mean, the guy is making the point that there's a real dilemma here, that we exist in a meat grinder scenario, and if there is no God and there's no Jesus, he's basically saying, well, fuck, this is pretty fucking gross. We're goddamn fucking parasites, big, giant, monstrous, horrid parasites, and, well, we sort of have to account for that rationally, if we're going to have something called intelligence. And, of course, you just run away. Like a girl.
Such that we was the ones who could be the overlords of destruction.
Yeah, well, we have the brain. That's right. You think you're overlording all over the place. You say you have a right to put a dog on a leash. You have a right to do this. You have a right to do that. You have all kinds of overlording rights. All of a sudden now I'm uncomfortable being an overlord when it comes to mercy. Yeah. It's pretty funny. You'll torture. You'll eat something. You'll be an overlord that says, I'm allowed to eat you. I'm allowed to barbecue your ass and eat you. I will overlord for that purpose. But I won't overlord for mercy. This is really just so pathetic. Look at Undercon. Oh, he's all stoic now. I'm being stoic. He had some stoic soup. So he's all full of stoicness. God, I hate this planet. Got more hilarious. Alright, so Andy's talking, but unfortunately his phone is not too good audio. But, it happens. So he's now making this argument that he made a long time ago, some bizarre argument where he thinks the word empathy can be used like you don't have empathy necessarily just for people in a negative condition. You have empathy for people in a positive condition, which really doesn't make much sense, right? I mean, why would you have a affirmative? Why would you bother concerning your consciousness with the welfare of something that's comfortable? That wouldn't make any sense. And the point isn't that anyway. Again, the point isn't the fact that I wish to deprive you of something. The point is I wish to protect something. So again, you're the one who has to first to account for the reason why you have a right to take. I don't have to account for why I'm protecting the victim. That is intrinsically and fundamentally reasonable. What has not been reasonably demonstrated is that you have some right to trespass on that victim, that you have some ownership of it, that I'm depriving you of, that you have some innate entitlement to the rape, so to speak. And your only argument is, well, nature made me that way, therefore I have a right. And what I'm saying is that's an idiotic answer. That's, again, like saying my 2-year-old told me I can drink and drive. It's not rational, it's not reasonable, it's not sensible, it's not cognizable as anything called intelligence. It's a bullshit, scapegoaty, nonsensical response to say, nature says so. Nature cannot say so, and even if nature could say so, nature's unqualified to say anything. Alright, yeah, it's getting kind of annoying because none of these guys have very good mics. So the guy talking now, he's got issues, people in the background, whatever. And a Conivod cell phone thing really isn't working well at all. So now they're on some argument that the world the way it is now is okay, and Pyrrho sort of has some sort of conscious, crisis where he actually will admit that, oh no, this really isn't good enough. But again, the argument is, in my opinion, just silly, because it's only not good enough for humans. So again, it's just this human-centric bullshit where we are doing the only thing interesting consciously, and it's just such a lie. All of nature still exists in slavery. All of it is a slave to a DNA molecule's agenda. The attrition rates are obscene. It is literally no different than if we made our existences back to a point where, 9 out of 10 of our children died, before reaching maturation. Would we find that acceptable? Pyrrho says it's acceptable for nature to live in that circumstance. And that default is not acceptable. It's not logically acceptable. And he only makes it acceptable through a bigotry that denies him the faculty to recognize that those other sentient creatures have just as much value as his spawn. That those spawn of the wolf is just as, the puppy is just as meaningful as the baby child, human. The death of one is no different than the death of the other. The brutality against one is no different than the brutality against the other. And I'd almost argue that because of the bizarre way humans maturate, that the human is even less consequential as a crime or an assault against sentient comfort. So you're still not even close to being on the subject, in my opinion. You're not on a philosophically coherent subject. You're just not. This guy is so funny. Oh, wait, he's talking about how he had a year of insanity, and he's talking about how his testicles retracted and his sphincter shriveled. I was just hilarious. I really should just play it because it was just hilarious. Well, anyway, it was funny. But yeah, it's a response to the glib monster who basically says, "Oh, look, I know depression and I know angst, and it's overcomable because I overcome it. You should overcome it, and if you can't overcome it, it's because you're weak or something." It's some kind of bullshit argument like that, Mr. Mega Man. Oh, it just. Yeah, well, whatever. The Nietzsche Third Reich. We really got to go to war against. These little mega monsters. Ugh. It just goes on and on. The misparaphrases again. So Holiday says he's trying his best, and in this video, in the previous statement, to paraphrase correctly, and of course he's not. So now he's again doing back to this stupid argument about the nature of how we acknowledge or resolve the issue of the value weight of suffering. And I've made the argument that we do this through our personal experience. And he's again changed that into, even though I've said it over and over and over again, that philosophy must remain distant from our personal psychology. We can't allow our psychology to define values or define, to make something valuable. We can only use it to inform us about the nature of value. And again, I've argued that my sentience is only useful as a way of knowing what it is to have a sensation. And so you know what pain is, and you know what unpleasantness is, and revulsion, and you know how horrible these experiences are. And through that, you can now project understanding onto something else that is in that position, something else who is trapped in an earthquake and has to cut their own leg off. You can understand how bad that would be because you can understand what it is to have these sensations and what it would be like to have to, gnaw your own leg off or something, and how that would just be an extremely horrible circumstance, or to, drink your own urine, and to do things that would just be repugnant or disgusting or grotesque, and that it would be obnoxious to your sensibilities. And so it's through personal experience that we understand this obnoxiousness, where if we didn't have a personal experience, where we didn't understand it through a feeling, it would be very difficult for us to understand why it's a bad thing, because we would just be like, well, that doesn't, in and of itself, how is that bad? Because we wouldn't know what it would be like to feel it, and you have to know what the feeling is before you can know that it's bad. So I'm just saying this again, and so again, to pervert that into me making a statement that I am arguing for people to have empathy. I do not care whether you have empathy. I do not care whether you have sympathy. I do not care whether you have pity. I'm saying these are likely to be necessary psychological reactions you are going to have when you see other equals or other people who you don't hate in a dire circumstance. Yes, if you see somebody you hate in a dire circumstance, it might please you. It might please me to see Obama sinking in quicksand. Where if it was a child and, a little girl named Sally, yes, I must do the rescuing. Where if it's Obama, yeah, I can take my time. I might want to wash some dishes first. So I'm just saying empathy is not the subject. The subject is not what your emotional response is. The subject is, do you understand it as a negative event? Do you understand that it needs to be corrected for? Because there's a negative thing happening, a negative sensation happening in and of itself, and that you understand it to be appropriate that that negative thing not happen. That's all that needs to exist, is your understanding. You do not have to have empathy to have this as a philosophy. So again, do not pervert my words into saying I'm requiring you to understand beyond the fact that you have some understanding or knowledge of the existence of this concept of torture, this concept of horrible, intractable pain or something. So you must have, even if you can't personally experience it, even if you don't know what it's like to have horrible pain, but I think you do know what it's like, that you can understand it in different forms and in different methods of sensation. Some of it's emotional, some of it's physical, some of it can come from different things, and you can understand that. So I'm just saying I don't think I need to explain that to you, and I'm just saying the fact that you know it's negative is the only part you need to understand. I'm sorry, I frankly, I mean, it's rather pathetic for me to have this argument with somebody who just did a video a week ago crying. I mean, fuck, I just don't understand. I really just don't understand why I have to have a conversation about the nature of unpleasant sensation. No. Alright, just about out of time, unfortunately, but this stuff is all crack shit crazy. So now his argument is we should manufacture people like Hoffa Day. This is a guy who attempted suicide, did a video crying, and he's going to tell me I should make people like him because he doesn't feel pain. Which I think is just absolutely ludicrous, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. You're fucking insane. Yes, you're insane. Why would I make more insane people?
Elvis, so what? So what? If let's just say, for the purpose of arguments, I am different in the sensory perception that Gary has accused me of.
Yeah, what I'm accusing you of is being insensitive to logic. You're not recognizing that the animal kingdom, the animals, you're a bigot. You're a fucking bigot. Okay, so you're not acknowledging the fact that these bad sensations are happening to animals. You're disregarding their pain. You're insulting their pain. You're pissing on their pain. You're neglecting their pain. You're denying their pain. You're committing a crime against their suffering. Yes, by not acknowledging its existence, you crazy fucktard. That's a big difference between whether or not you feel empathy. Again, I don't give a fuck whether you have sympathy, you motherfucking cunt. I'm making a logical argument, okay, that it is necessarily bad. I don't care whether it makes you cry or not. I just couldn't give a rat's ass what your fucking emotions are. I want you to acknowledge that the sentient being is in pain. It is suffering. That's all I want you to do, you stupid fuck. When a baby elephant is being eaten by lions, it is not having a good fucking time. I want you to acknowledge that, shithead. As a fact. That it's not eating goddamn cupcakes. It's not having happy peanuts. Stupid fuck. Anyway.
You know.